This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Pet injuries and additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Hey, I'm Greer. Welcome to the Unfinished Idea podcast, a space for you to expand your understanding about the neurodiverse world, which is all around us. Whether you're a parent, a friend, a teacher, or a neighbor, everyone is welcome to join us as we help bring awareness and better understanding about those who are neurodivergent and families who are raising children with special needs. I'm a mom to 2 boys and 2 dogs, and together with my husband, raising a child with additional needs. I often feel lonely and overwhelmed in my daily experience because life looks different for us. This podcast will share practical help, tips, and insights into the difficulties, joys, and differences of the neurodiverse world. Today's conversation is so special. I talk with my friend Judith about, a need she saw in her community and what she did about it. She created, along with her sidekick, a space called Our Space, where everyone in the family who's raising a child with additional needs can come and feel known, seen, and can feel loved. They wanted to create a space where, like I said, everyone in the family could come, no matter their ability, no matter their brain type, but everyone could come. And that's what they've done. They've been going for, I think, 7 or 8 years now. And it has been so fun to see how they've adapted and changed and just created a space where everyone feels welcome. Before we jump into today's episode, I have put together a podcast listener survey that I would love for you to fill out. This survey is just here to help me craft the show better, make sure I'm talking about topics you want to hear, and overall serve you and your families. By filling out the survey, you will be automatically entered into a draw where you can win some amazing fun prizes like merch from the podcast that is not yet public, as well as some of my favorite things and even a call with me. So go down to the show notes and click on that link that's called Podcast Survey, and if you don't mind just filling it in. Now let's jump in. Judith, you have worked with children for many years through your church, through working in a school, raising children, and now being a grandma. What has been your experience of seeing neurodivergent kids kind of in those different settings? How have you got to experience their joys in those settings?
Right. I suppose because they're different settings, I see different aspects of neurodivergent kids. So with school, having worked in a primary school with mostly 9, 10, 11-year-olds, in a school setting, things are set up. There's procedures in place. Often we know that a child is neurodivergent or has other things as well. Not always, of course. We sometimes spot it. But things are in place. In church, sometimes I think the difference is that and I've been involved in a couple of churches. Churches aren't always quite so aware. And I've found sometimes that they need a few hints from those of us that know stuff to know what to do. I think generally kids' work is set up for the majority, and I think it is improving as time's gone on, but some churches maybe are not quite aware of how to be fully inclusive and help kids that are neurodivergent or have other disabilities as well to be thoroughly part of it.
Off the top of your head, what is one thing that the church could do to help educate themselves? That sounds very aggressive, but, just to help them learn how to care for neurodivergent people and families.
I would suggest that they actually talk. If it's children, talk to the parents. Parents generally know their kids better, and they will know the strategies and things that work for their child. Neurodivergent kids are not exactly the same. There's massive differences. So parents know. In the church, I would suggest still chatting very nicely. Find the right person, but chat to them. Find out what they find hard in a service. Is it the noise? Is it where they sit? Is it the smell of the coffee brewing at the back? Find out from them what helps them to make them feel comfortable And I think if I can add in a second one, because I think they're both really important, I think some sort of training for people in church. We often train our Sunday school leaders, but I'm sure there's a lot of adults that don't get other adults if they're neurodivergent. And it needs people to maybe now and again do some training for the grown-ups in church to understand why a child's running around or why an adult finds certain parts of the service difficult. So talking.
Yeah, that's good. Having conversation is always good. And like you say, everyone is different, which also includes every neurodivergent person. And so what works for one person may not work for someone else. And so making sure that what works for them really does work for them. You and some friends, will say, at church have started a group called Our Space. This was launched quite a few years ago. Can you talk more about what is Our Space? Why did you create this kind of group?
I'm really excited by Our Space. We started in 2016. Myself and a friend had been on team at New Wine, one of the big Christian conferences in England. And we'd been helping initially with children with additional needs. And then I carried on helping with young adults and then adults in different years of being on team there. And it was funny because my friend, I'll name her, but just her first name, Hannah, we both kind of had the same idea at the same time. When they stopped this particular conference, they used to do 2 in the country and then they decided to do one big one down south. A lot of the families from up north felt it was too far to take their children with additional needs because it was such a long journey before they got there. We were really gutted. And we'd had some conversations with the other helpers about, wouldn't it be great if there was a place for kids and families to go and do church, or not really do church, but do something and have a warm, welcoming place. And then it took a whole year or so. And my friend at church, we both had the same idea at exactly the same day. And we both said to each other almost at the same time, can I have a quick chat? And yeah, okay. So we had a little chat and we realized we were both wanting to start the same thing, which we called Our Space. The group at New Wine was called Our Place. So you can see we did a sneaky little pinch from that. And we wanted to make something that was not on a Sunday, it was on a Saturday, that would include parents and siblings of the child with additional needs, to make a safe place and also a place where there weren't any pressures, because you sometimes have to all stop and do a craft together, or we're all going to stop and do some singing. And we realised that for a lot of parents, they were having to try and mould their child to do the right things at the right time. And that has to happen at school a lot. But we wanted to make a place where if a child wanted to sit in the ball pool for the entire 2 hours and there's no pressure on the child and importantly, no pressure on the parents to get them to have to join in with a compulsory craft activity or something. So we found another church near us, near Loughborough, and I went down to enjoy a session there, and then both of us went, and they were very helpful and we saw what they did. So we just decided to set up something similar. It had to work with the building that we'd got. They had quite a big space. We had a church, fortunately without pews. So we clear all the chairs out. We use a side room for a sensory room. We use the hall for siblings or some of the older kids to play in. And we run this group for parents. We look after the siblings, and hopefully it's a safe place for kids to come and to relax. Well, for all of them to chill and have fun.
What is your favorite thing about Our Space?
Oh, I think the favorite thing is, and this is going to sound really weird, we don't talk about God. And that does sound weird because it's in a church and we're all Christians. What we do have, we have T-shirts, and we were advised this by the group we visited. It means that kids know who we are, parents know who we are. It makes it easy. And on the back, it says, ready to play, ready to pray. We have a little prayer box on the coffee table where parents can sit. And it's in a church, which is a big hint that we are Christian. But we don't do anything specifically Christian. We did at the beginning. And we soon realised there was one family in particular that as soon as we did, and it was a brilliant little interactive talk, as soon as we did the tiny little God slot, this family would shoot out like jackrabbit. And as time went on, we thought, well, actually, we're doing, I think it's Galatians 5, verse 8, the last part of verse 8, faith expressing itself through love. And we thought, rather than us doing a little God talk, let's just concentrate on loving the kids, loving the parents, loving the siblings, enjoying what we do there. And amazingly, that has had such a reaction, because after a while, you build up a bit of trust with the parents. They get to know you. It's the same team pretty much every month, so we're regulars. And then after a little while, we've had parents come up and say, why do you do this? Is this part of the church? And it just leads into a natural conversation about church. And we've had a few families that through none of us doing any evangelizing whatsoever, who have started to come to church because they felt treasured and loved. And we feel that's probably the best way for us, how we run this group, for it to go. So that's the surprising thing. We don't mention God. We don't do a God talk. We don't tell Bible stories. We just care. And then families seem to like it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's it's a good example as well of, I don't know who says this. I'm going to quote them horribly, but just the idea of sometimes your actions are the Bible people read, or something like that.
Yes, yeah,
totally misquote that.
That's great.
But yeah, just that idea that they are seeing your love. They're seeing your love for each other, their love for their family, their love for God, your love for God through what you're doing.
Yeah.
Beyond just the Saturday to then going on a Sunday as well.
Well, we've done little things. So we've do a little Christmas, well, I don't know what you call it really. It's a bit of a Christingle. It's a bit of a Christmas play. Lots of the kids come and dress up. And the other person, Hannah, who does this with me, bless her, she's really good at Makaton signing. I'm a real beginner. I'm not great at it. I've done all the training, but it's remembering it. She's good. And we used to do two of them. One with we still do, one that's signed in Makaton, and it's very inclusive. And we've had families coming to that as a little bridge in a way, and they've discovered, actually a service is okay as well. And church, we've learned a lot in church about kids and adults, I think, with additional needs. And there's always much to learn. But hopefully it makes it easier for families to try it out without it being too scary. And there's familiar faces around. So that kind of little thing has helped a bit. But one or two families just turned up on a Sunday and, hello, which is great.
That's cool. You mentioned that our space is for the whole family, not just for parents or just for the neurodivergent child.
Yes.
I have two questions about that. The first one is, how do you include the whole family in your activities?
I mean, obviously the main focus is on lots of sensory and fun activities for the children. And so when we get new children, there's obviously a contact form, but we try and find out things they like. We try and gear for example, we have a lovely little boy who loves those little plastic animals. So whatever we do, whatever our theme is for that month, there is a bunch of plastic animals that we fit in. So, for example, last month, it was all about vehicles and transport. So we made a tough spot up as a safari park. So we had the animals with all the cars going round. So we work in things that work for the kids. If the kids are happy, then the parents are more likely, after they've been a few times, to sit down and relax and not feel they've got to follow their child around. There's stuff that the kids enjoy. Then the parents start relaxing. We have a little parents area where we, sit down. We always have some nice cakes. We've got lovely people who make really nice cakes. There's always something that's gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, egg-free, because some children have got major problems with different things. So we have a little parents area, and the helpers, some of our helpers stay in the kitchen and make tea. We always have somebody near the door so nobody escapes, and to make sure, contact forms are filled in and knowing who we've got. But we also have people who are brilliant at sitting in the parents' area and just chatting, just finding out how their day's gone and, a bit about them. So that, and we have chairs all the way around the church as well. So sometimes when a child's playing or doing some of the activities, parents will sit there and people are ready to chat if they want to. I mean, we try and be sensitive, and if parents don't want to, that's fine. But we try to just chat. We have one or two people who sometimes come in. We've got the vicar's wife actually comes in with their dog, who is a trained therapy dog. And it's amazing. Some of the kids like it, but there's quite a few parents that like the dog. And again, it's a conversation thing, And then for siblings, we just try and find out what they would like to do. So in the hall, we've got the football table, there's a pool table, there's a table tennis table which keeps breaking, but, that gets sorted out. So, some of the older siblings sometimes go in there. We always have a simple craft activity, but I try and make sure there's a more complex craft activity. There's one girl particularly who quite likes doing things like that now and again. So there's other things for them to do, and one or two different toys. It depends who's there as to what we get out, but there's things for siblings to join in with even if they don't have any learning difficulties or anything. We try and help the whole family to feel welcome and to feel it's a nice place to come for a couple of hours. So it's very much getting to know the parents and the siblings and the kids and trying to find something that they would like to do.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
Yeah, that's a really important thing, I think, in the middle of raising a neurodivergent child and a neurotypical child, making sure that they both are cared for and both know that they are loved in all. It's not just, obviously, hopefully they know that we love them, but also, the church and the schools, wherever they go.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to make it for the family. And it's I think it's important, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. My second question is, you and Hannah have obviously done research and trialed things, but what is something that someone in the community who knows the family could do to help support the whole family?
I suppose, first of all, get to know them, and through kind of chats, maybe say if you can have a coffee with mum while the kids are at school, have a good chat. It may be a mixture of things that can help. It might be providing meals every now and again, turn up with a nice casserole. It might be as simple as always, if you see them at church, making sure you say hello to them and to the kids, just so that people, they know you, that you're bothered enough to bother to say hello. Yeah, it's difficult. If you know somebody really well, obviously it's maybe bits of babysitting and things. But I would say just talking and spend the time in finding out because each family will have different things. It might be giving somebody a lift down to the local hospital for when they've got a checkup or something. Might be popping to the chemist for them, all sorts of little things. And you only get to know it by getting to know people, I think, a bit more. And in my experience, it's sometimes little tiny things that you do that mean so much. And as you know, it's hard for parents. Life is hard, busy. So things like meals and shopping trips and stuff can help. And for some, it's just they just want to talk to another adult. So a cup of coffee in the local coffee shop is sometimes really big and more help than a meal and shopping.
Yeah. For me, I remember someone bringing a meal to our house. They messaged to say, oh, will you be home? Is it okay if I bring this? And they said, oh, it can go straight in the freezer. So it was like, no pressure eating it now kind of thing. And that for that day, it was kind of already sorted and I put it in the freezer. And it was probably 2 weeks later that life did not go to plan. There was just a lot of feelings and meltdowns and just a lot of things were happening. And I just remember being like, oh, it's so great that I could pull that out because it was just quick, easy. I could put it in the microwave and I knew everyone was going to be fed a healthy meal. And it was just, so that's it. And I hadn't really thought about that again until you mentioned, just offering a meal. So that's that's a really sweet blessing, even if it's not in the moment. It's always a blessing in the moment, but you know what I mean? Even if it wasn't consumed in the moment, exactly. Knowing 2 weeks later that when it was needed, it was there. So that's a really good thing. Yeah. What is something that you would want the world to know about neurodiverse people?
Let's see. I would want the world to know that I think some people think, oh gosh, that person is neurodivergent. They won't understand me. They'll be on a different planet. I don't know what to say. I might embarrass them, so I won't do anything. And I think the thing to do would be to talk to them, but very observantly. So, I'm thinking of a child I know, and this was a school situation. And I had to wear the same perfume every time because I smelt wrong if I had the wrong stuff up. And I only knew that because when I put something different on, he would wrinkle his nose up. I think when you're talking to somebody, observe them. And if they don't want to talk to you, then don't give up. Just be there. Maybe look at if they're looking at something. Just to be ready to make contact with them in any way that works for them and not to be put off if they totally ignore you and disappear off. I think for a number of people, it can take a while for someone who's neurodivergent to trust you, and it can take a while for yourself to find out things that they're interested in, what makes them tick. They might have a particular subject that they're really interested in. And if you can find that out, that's a lovely way of talking. And they may not want to interact with you at all. And that's absolutely fine. You can still smile. A smile is always good. They may not want you to come up and shake their hands or pat them on the back or something. So I would say keep trying, but be really observant while you're doing it and try to work out what they don't like. So if they don't like you too close or you're too noisy or something, and find out something that they might be interested in. So you've got something to talk about. So don't be scared would be my tip to the world.
Yeah. Don't be scared. They're just people.
Yeah. Exactly.
I also will say, I don't know, everyone's different, obviously. But I also find often neurodivergent people are a little bit more straightforward. So the nose wrinkle, although he didn't say, oh, I don't like that perfume, there was an expression that you noticed. And I find, with our son as well, there'll be things that, as I've watched him grow and, obviously I know my son, there are things that he'll do that I'm like, oh, he doesn't like, or, oh, that's something a hand gesture. It's often a hand gesture that he'll do that is his kind of sign of approval. It's I don't know why he does that. I've not actually asked him why he does that. And I don't want to because I'm worried he'll then notice and stop doing it. But it's my way of kind of going, oh yeah,
brilliant.
He's kind of done that gesture, shows me that he's enjoying this, or, oh, he's actually done that gesture and he's not enjoying this, or it's often a feel. It's a feel. Sensory thing.
Yeah.
So,
you only pick those gestures up by observing and really engage, not staring them down because that would put anybody off, but just being aware. And that's how you can work out those things, isn't it? And obviously as a mum, you learn that pretty quickly, I guess, the different ways.
Yeah. This might be a similar answer, which is totally okay. But is there something that you would want the church to know specifically about neurodivergent people?
Yes. And this comes to mind because of a conversation I had at our space just a few months ago. And I think it's a biggie. And again, this sounds really weird at the beginning, but there's a reason for it. We have a lovely, lovely mum and daughter. Her daughter's nonverbal, neurodivergent, and has some other things as well. And she'd been coming for a few months, so we were getting to know her. And she said to me, she was very tearful that day, and she goes to a church the other side. She comes all the way from the other side of Nottingham. And we both ended up in tears because she said to me, I don't know why my daughter hasn't been healed. I've been praying for her for years. Her child is about 8. And I've been told that it says in the Bible, and she goes to a church, it says in the Bible that if you pray, then your prayers will be answered. And they haven't been answered because she is still has the same, problems that she'd always had. Is it because I've sinned, or has she sinned? And if she's sinned, how can she say sorry to God when she can't talk and she doesn't understand it? And we both cried together. I couldn't believe that the message she'd got from church was that everybody has to confess their sins verbally to God, else you go to hell. And also that if you pray enough, then everything turns out okay. And we had a lovely chat. And I hoped I was able to help her understand that the Bible doesn't just say that. The Bible says God is with you throughout all the rotten stuff that happens. And you only have to look at so many Bible. He talked about his thorn in the flesh, and he was quite impressive in the Bible. And yet he still had things that hadn't been sorted by God. And I think it's a little bit that gets taken out of context. And when you've got a very concerned parent who is desperate for their child to be fine, and they've tried praying and it didn't work because they are still the same, I think it's very sad that sometimes church teaching almost bolsters that if you haven't prayed, then maybe you're the one at fault because you haven't prayed enough, or maybe the person has sinned and they need to confess. How can a child who is, quite profoundly neurodivergent with all sorts of other things, possibly have sinned, let alone need to say a prayer to God? And that is something I would love the church to be more aware of, that sometimes there's a very victorious message of, if you pray, everything's all right. And we all know that God he's not like Father Christmas, that you ask for something and then you get it. But God does promise that he's with us throughout all the rotten stuff. And sometimes amazing things do happen. But actually, most of the time, it doesn't. But sometimes you look back and you realise there was just the right person to provide a meal on that day, or there was just the right thing that happened. And you can sometimes see God afterwards. But this message of, you've got to, if you haven't prayed hard enough, that's why your prayers haven't been answered, I don't think is backed up in the Bible at all. And she's not the first parent I've spoken to, actually, who has been told that. So that is what I would like the church to learn, to stop being so wrongly victorious and to be more, let people know, especially new Christians, let people know that becoming a Christian helps you to be aware that there is a wonderful God that thinks you are wonderful, warts and all. And certainly no child is ever going to go to hell at all because they couldn't say the right prayer. So that's my bugbear with the church. Yes.
Yeah, that's hard because, I was talking to a friend a couple months ago, and her son is similar, kind of nonverbal. She always says he has a cocktail of needs. And we were just talking about, the church and her experience. She unfortunately had a similar experience as this lady, and she's kind of processing it a little bit. I think she had some other voices that were kind of helping as well. So she kind of knew this wasn't totally right. But just that she's like, the hardest thing for her was that, yes, she's prayed that her son would be healed because, like you say, every parent wants their child to be able to thrive and, and have a good life. But she said she prays that her child will be healed, but she also prays that she would be healed And that idea that, there are things in her life that aren't perfect. Like being healed isn't always a physical thing. It can be anything, it can be anything. And she said that really has helped her to think about her son not necessarily needing healing, but, still praying for it. And she also thinks that this is like we had a long conversation that I'm summing up in like a minute, but she also kind of was like, in this process has helped see that her son has been placed in her life for a reason, and how often she has drawn to God because of her son. That sounds really negative, but you know what I mean? Just that her relationship with the Lord has strengthened because she realizes she can't do it on her own.
Yes.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to say about neurodivergence being, having a space where people are welcomed? Is there anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see more places like our space popping up. I would love to see more places like an ordinary cafe that maybe has a quieter corner. Basically, I would love loads more people who work in shops and in cafes and in offices to be more aware of how to talk to neurodivergent kids and adults. Because I'm sure everybody who goes to work in an office or a shop or wherever will either have somebody who's neurodivergent on the staff or who they will meet. And, you see lots of things on telly about dealing with all sorts of stuff. I don't see quite so much about that. And I think if people like bus drivers had more training and shop assistants had, just a little bit of awareness, that would make life a whole load easier for a load of parents with their kids, and also for adults who maybe are very high functioning but still are neurodivergent and find some aspects of everyday life difficult. So yes, education, definitely.
Yeah. In the UK, I believe it's 1 in 6 people are diagnosed as neurodivergent. Now, obviously, there's a spectrum within a spectrum within a spectrum. Yes. So it can be kind of different things. But I don't know, when I've seen that in several reputable places. And I just think that is not a lot in a bad way, but just that, like you say, there will be people in every aspect of your life, of, where you meet people or see people that will be neurodivergent who you don't know. You don't know. And so having education of how to respond or how to work with is important. So.
Yes, absolutely. And that is a phenomenal number. And I'm sure a lot of those are adults that maybe their friends and even family don't really realise. And sometimes there's plenty of adults that don't know themselves because it wasn't picked up years ago at school, which would be now, maybe. And I've come across the odd adult who was discovered in their 30s or 40s that they're neurodivergent. And it's been such a relief, because they always knew they were a bit different or something. And then it answers that kind of question that was like in their heads, that actually I'm not weird. Actually, it can be a superpower as well. So I think people are more aware. There's still a long way to go.
Yes. Yep. I would agree with that. Well, thank you very much, Judith, for coming onto the podcast and sharing and helping us to know more and help us to be more educated, better educated in this topic. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you very much for asking me. And I'm always love our space so much. I'm always happy to tell everybody about it because it's well loved by the people that come to it. All of the helpers love doing it. And I would love seeing more places like that in church and out of church where people who are neurodivergent or have other additional needs are welcomed and loved for who they are. Yeah, so thank you.
Did you know some neurodivergent people have a strong aversion to certain textures, like the feeling of velvet, cotton balls, or even water on their skin? Sensory sensitivities are common among neurodivergent individuals, meaning certain textures, sounds, or sensations can be overwhelmingly uncomfortable. Some people find the feel of cotton balls unbearably rough, while others dislike the sensation of certain fabrics against their skin. Even something as everyday as washing hands can be distressing if the sensation of water is too intense. These sensitivities are related to differences in sensory processing. and can impact clothing choices, food preferences, and daily routines. Hey, if you can take a minute to rate and review the show, that would help us out a lot. It means new folks can find us and learn about the show and join in the conversation. So go out there and continue the conversation, and we will see you next week.
Hi, dear one. I'm Dr. Edie Wadsworth, your new favorite Christian life coach, and I want to invite you to the House of Joy podcast. If you're a woman over 40 or the daughter of one who wants to build a positive mindset, healthier habits, and thriving relationships, this is the show for you. We talk about personal growth, faith, resilience, and creating a life you're obsessed with. So if you're tired of feeling stuck and ready to step into more joy and purpose, come join us. Listen now wherever you get your podcast.
Are you hungry for guidance about mindset, relationships, health, finances, career decisions, and dealing with your past? I'm Trey Tucker, licensed therapist and speaker and host of Rugged, a podcast where I help young men and women navigate life's challenges and find solutions to help them live lives of service and meaning. In this podcast, you'll learn mindset strategies to harness your thoughts and emotions in ways that help you achieve your goals. I bring a blend of straight talk and empathy, and I'm open to addressing any topic and treating it and the people connected to it with respect and curiosity. Come join us. We have a space for you. Search for Rugged with Trey Tucker wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure to hit the follow button so new weekly episodes will be delivered straight to your personal podcast feed. My hope is that this podcast will leave you feeling encouraged and empowered to take charge of your life and close the gap between who you are and who you want to be.